welcome to the show.
Thanks, Alan. Great job on saying my name. Not everybody gets that, so I really appreciate it. But I'm excited to be here, so thanks for having me.
Well, glad you're here. And the first burning question I've got is, how in the world did you ever even decide that entrepreneurship was for you?
Well, so I'd tell you that surprises a lot of people because I had a really big career with Walmart. I was there for 17 years and I grew up with Walmart. And so I was a corporate America girl. That's what I'd done. That was the only thing I'd ever done. And, I got to a point in my career where I was ready to do something. Anybody who works for a big corporation knows that every time the corporation changes direction, everybody changes, period, right? Like, so whatever you were doing yesterday, that might not matter today anymore. Like you're moving on. And I really was ready for something that I could call mine, and that the relationships that I built today still matter tomorrow. And the stuff that I'm doing today, and I could really build on something. And, that's kind of where I found me, all kinds of big corporations, they're making big changes all the time. And, they got to one big change and they offered me an opportunity to take this new position they had, or I could take this very nice severance package at the time and go do my own thing. And I talked to my husband and I just felt like there had to be something more in the world, and I needed to go find some of it.
Yeah, as I do these interview with small business owners, well, actually, one was not a small business owner; he was more of a medium-sized business owner. Early in the conversation, it comes up about a spouse, and you've already brought up, having a conversation with your husband. And I know the conversation I had with my wife the very first time when I decided to leave corporate America and I was going to open my business. My wife is, you are not going to use your words to influence her. It's facts and data that she operates by. So share your story about how you structured that conversation with your husband to make that move.
Yeah. So I would tell you that my husband, first of all, I was always the go-getter in my career, right? So I was the one getting promoted and I was moving us. And so with Walmart, I had moved us halfway across the country into several different locations. And so he is an amazing support guy. So that's probably not as interesting as the next part. When I said, I think I want to do this, he said, great. The next part was we were going to start a business together. And that is actually what didn't go so well. Actually, so for the record, I've been married 20 years, going on 21 this year, but we could not even agree on a time to meet to talk about the business. So that plan went up in smoke very, very quickly. Obviously, we realized our marriage was more important than starting a business together. But that's where things started getting a little bit like, oh, okay, I'm going to have to do this. So then we thought, okay, well, if we can't agree on making the decisions together, maybe we need a franchise. And so we did start there. That's not where I'm at today, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, when I think back on, my personal journey, it's, if anybody can shoot holes in a big old fat juicy plan, it's my wife. So you better bring your A game and do your research, to make sure that it's right. So when you decided to make that move into business ownership, talk a little bit about that due diligence process. How did that go?
Yeah, so I'm probably a lot more like your wife. I'm a numbers girl. So I, lived and died by my P&L as a Walmart store manager, and even into the corporate world. As I got into the office, I helped manage the financials across formats, and I could walk into stores and be like, this is costing you money and this could save you money, right? Like I was always into the numbers. So we decided we wanted a franchise. And we got like a kind of like a realtor, but it was like for franchises, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
we spent actually 6 months, evenings and weekends, on these calls with these franchises, because you had to have 3 calls before they'd give you the financials. And I wanted to see the financials. So we spent 6 months doing that. And I mean, I saw a lot of them where as I worked the numbers, I was like, oh, that just doesn't quite add up for me. Like, I just can't, um, I just don't see it. So it took us a while before we got to we got to like our top 5 that I felt like the actual business model and the money that you could make, not the franchisor, but the franchisee could make, seemed reasonable. The number I was really shooting for was somewhere around 30 or 35%. I felt like, if it said you could make that, then you could probably really make a go of it.
Mhm.
And honestly, I'm not even sure where I got that then, but it still holds true today.
Yeah. So, talking about that process now you've done the due diligence, like, okay, we're going to pull the trigger.
Yep.
Let's talk about that pivotal moment. What was that like?
Well, it was exciting and scary. First of all, to buy a franchise, you have to have a sum that you're going to put down. So
Mhm.
it's not quite like starting your own from scratch. Now that I've done both, I'm not sure which one's better or worse, but uh, but so you're putting a chunk of change into that, and you're making a pretty serious commitment on the front side. And so we were excited though. My husband was in, it's a franchise. My husband was in, that lasted, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. But actually, my daughter and my son were really excited too. So my daughter was getting ready to graduate high school, and that was just a really great time for her to be able to see us starting a business.
Mhm.
And I was all about learning. I mean, if we were going to pay the money for this franchise to teach us, I was going to learn. I wanted to know every single thing. And it was actually a painting company. So residential and commercial interior and exterior painting. And we bought the entire territory we lived in that the franchise would sell us. So from top to bottom, in our area is called Northwest Arkansas. But uh, because the population was growing hugely. And so we felt like that was a great investment to buy it
Mhm.
early, all of it. Uh, but we went to every training they gave us. We went to I mean, literally from like, you put little booties on your shoes before you walk in the door, you lay down the little 5-star painting mat, and that's what you step on in their house. Followed it all. I was like, if we are paying for a franchise, we are going to follow every single thing they tell us to do.
All right. So now that we've made the decision, we've got this. We've got this business started and we're in it. Almost everyone that I've talked to has some kind of story where they had this big obstacle they didn't see coming that they had to get through. Right. So I can tell you mine was financial. I was like, getting to paying all these employees, just that cash flow thing was a big thing that I had to come over. So for your business, where was an obstacle, and explain the obstacle a little bit and how you overcame that obstacle.
Yeah. So, partly because I'm a numbers girl, I understood a lot about like the numbers and how they worked. What I didn't understand or expect, I would tell you, especially as a new business owner, is that there's no time left in the day, and you have to put your numbers in to get a P&L out, right? Like, so I can read every P&L in the world, but if you didn't put any numbers in,
Mm.
you're not going to have a P&L to read. So that was a really hard thing for me, because I was all about like go out and talk to people and go get the sales and like that was my strong suit. But the whole like, and it wasn't even hard. The franchise, we had QuickBooks, we had all the stuff, we had all the systems, but you still had to put the numbers in the system at the end of the day, right? And so getting myself into a routine. And I'll tell you, the first year I just didn't, it was terrible. Like I was so focused from my retail background on getting sales
Mm.
right? Which we did a phenomenal job, but that I just wasn't forcing myself to make time to make sure the numbers were getting right in the system.
Mm.
And I spent 4 months the second year going back weekly on weekly calls with the QuickBooks trainer people,
Mhm.
fixing my because I think we had done 200,000 in sales, and my book said we'd done like 400,000, which is a real problem when you're trying to pay taxes, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like, I mean, and yeah. So anyways, I spent about 4 months it took me to fix it all and get it right to where my P&L and my numbers were actually running. So even though we were running a good business and the financials were strong, I had no way to prove it, right? It wasn't on
Mhm.
paper. I
Yeah.
mean, correctly. So, that doesn't count.
Yeah. So let's talk a minute about risk taking, because starting a business on your own, no matter how big or small, there's that risk factor. It and for my journey, it was being able to sleep at night, because some people leverage a lot of their assets in order to get a business launched. Share a story about some risk that you took and how you were able to get through that and minimize the risk. Sometimes it's a short amount of time. Sometimes, like for me, it took several years to minimize that risk. So talk about some risk that you took and how you persevered through that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, I'm pretty comfortable in the whole risk piece of things. Um, and the biggest part for me, of course, was jumping off from the corporate paycheck, right? Because,
Yeah.
you know, doing $200,000 a year in sales in a painting company is not going to produce a big paycheck for you in revenue, right? Like that's not at the end of the day, what's left for you is
Yeah.
not a big paycheck, right? So, uh, having to adjust some of my expectations, right, coming out of that, and I guess learning how to think differently about money, because I just always had a paycheck every 2 weeks, right? But if we didn't have jobs, we didn't have money, right?
Right.
I would say I feel like there was a lot of risky jobs. Like, so the first big one, it was a commercial job, right? So they wanted us to paint this roof, big metal roof for a small, not a hospital, but a clinic. But that's pretty big compared to painting
Yeah.
the roof of a house, right? And it was a metal roof, so it had to be industrial paint, all this stuff. So we had to spend, I think it was like $20,000 just on supplies to paint
Wow.
this roof, right? Before we ever even got going. And so the bigger the job, the more you had to spend on the front side. So we had to learn really quickly, does that mean we're going to take half down? Does that mean we're going to take a quarter down? Right.
Mm.
So when you kind of talk about minimizing the risk, we transitioned pretty, I would say probably 6 months or less into, okay, we're going to take 50% down on jobs, because that's what's going to cost, the minimum. And then there was a big question about, you talked about your employees and your labor, right? So that was another interesting thing moving into the entrepreneur world, because do you hire an employee if you only need one, or do you contract them out with a service that hires employees, or do you, right? So we ended up actually, our painters were 1099. But that's a very fine line. So we could not provide them paintbrushes. We could not provide them ladders. We could not, right? Like it was all these things, like, and so you had to really make sure that, you were, and so and we had 16 paint crews at one time running at one point, so it's like, you really had to make sure that you were following all the rules. And I would say, taking a percentage down made a big difference on the risk we had to take with different jobs. I mean, I feel like the whole thing in entrepreneurship is a risk every day. That's what you're doing all the time.
Yeah. You know,
It's
it's funny. Everybody that I've talked to, when they go into business, they're passionate about whatever it is, whether it's painting, whether it's baking pies or whatever it is. They're craftsmen. You know, or at least most of them start out as craftsmen, especially in the service industry. And so far we've talked about financials, we've talked about risk, which is insurance. It's also risk is from a legal standpoint. So we've kind of touched on some things that are not so fun parts of business ownership. So talk a little bit about, let's get into some fun stuff. Let's talk about some projects that were the wins, like some big things. They're like, yes, I think we finally got our grasp on this thing. Let's talk little bit about that.
Yeah, so so a couple of big wins for me, and I'm on my third business actually. That was my very first one, but the one of the big wins was my daughter was actually able to come to work for us in the company, right? And if I would have worked for corporate America still, so when you kind of talk about the personal things, she wouldn't have been able to do that. And my daughter, when she learns something, she's got it and she's fantastic, but she has a learning disability. So she has to learn things in a special way, or sometimes it takes her a little longer. And man, she was amazing. She did such a phenomenal job. She was a project manager for us, and to just be able to watch her grow and see her skills come to life and see her feel so excited and passionate about adding value and have it be our family business. Like that was a pretty big moment. I mean, obviously there's like the business side, but that was a really big moment for us. And as a matter of fact, when I sold the painting company, she stayed on with them for the next 6 months after that, like, to help the transition and all that. I mean, so that was pretty phenomenal. I'd tell you, so here, just a little funny story when you talk about wins, right? So at first I was like, oh my gosh, okay, now we have to get customers. How are we going to get customers, right? Like, we own this company. We have all the stuff, we're ready. And so I put the whole thermometer stick, like you do when you're raising money for charity. And it was like on the wall at our house, this like big hand-drawn thermometer. So it wasn't great or anything, but it had all these lines. And when we got to 5 customers a week, everybody got new cell phone chargers. And when we got to 10 customers a week, everybody got new. I mean, I can't remember. It was just like, we made this list. Okay, we got to 20 customers. We went to the movies and dinner, and we had like all these like things so we could win, because our goal was to do $30,000 a month in jobs. Like, that was our first goal. But you had to start somewhere. And I'm like, how do I excite us and make us motivated, right? Because you're not working for a company. And for the record, I worked for Walmart. You just open the doors and the customers flood in.
Right.
This was not that.
So you mentioned that you sold that business.
Yes.
And now you're into other things. Let's talk a little bit about that. How did the next business come along? How's that going for you now?
Yeah. So, we kind of talked a little bit about the up and down of the whole providing a financial statement when it's your own business, right? Well, I knew it was important. And obviously I told you about how hard I worked to get it on track. Well, that was very good, because what I didn't understand is that in the small business world, that is something that lots of small business owners don't prioritize and don't do. Well, so we got about 3 years in, things were running great. Our numbers were good, but I like to move all the time. So the whole things are great and steady. I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like, you kind of talked about a baker or something like that, someone who was passionate about the project. I was passionate about being a business owner. I was not necessarily passionate about painting. And I had realized that difference now a couple of years. Then we get to 2020, and that was a great year for painting companies. Let me just tell you. Once we got past the whole had to shut down for a month. But all of our clients that had jobs scheduled that stayed with us, and then it was a fantastic year. So we got at the end of 2020. I told my husband, I said, I think I'm ready to do something different. I don't know what that looks like, but I thought it'd probably take us a year to sell the painting company. It took 1 month.
Wow.
Well, we had a great P&L. We had our financials in order. We had all these things that I didn't know were that important. And so when I started telling people, hey, we're looking to sell, so I was not expecting it to take 1 month. I was expecting it to take a year. And so now I had a year to think about what I wanted to do next. No, that is not what happened. So after that, I kind of, I just started doing different like jobs for people that I knew that owned businesses. So they'd have me come in and walk their inventory in the back of their stores, or like help them figure out how they're going to navigate some of the issues they were having, or help them get their books in order, or help them, and they were paying me to do it, and it was working great. And so I thought, okay, all right. And I thought about, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 months later, okay, maybe I should get a real job. So I went to start putting my resume together. And everybody kept saying, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to work with this company, and I want to help them fix stuff. And I want to work with this company, and then I want to work with this company, right? Like I love that, all those different challenges in different spaces. And Walmart, if you think about a Walmart store, right? Like you have clothing, and you have housewares, and you have cosmetics, you have garden center, all these different like specialty places that you can kind of go. And so, anyways, they said, that's consulting. And I said, well, business consulting sounds a lot like talking, and I really want to do stuff. And they laughed just like that, just like you just did. And they said, yep, that's still consulting. That's exactly what happened. So the first year I ran it under Windy Elstermeier Consulting, which was terrible because nobody can spell Windy or Elstermeier. But I had clients already, so I wasn't like too concerned. But the second year, when I was like, okay, this is like a real thing. And when you kind of talk about your passion project, I feel like that's where I found my passion, right? Being able to solve different business strategy problems and building strategies for business. I was like, oh, I think I have found my sweet spot, right? So I got all branded, and it's called Pivotal Solutions Business Consulting. Pivotal, of course, because that means movement, and it's not just talking, right?
Love that name.
Yeah. And then of course I wrote a book. So that was fantastic, a motivational personal development style book. And so I started kind of speaking from that. So that's all kind of tied together.
Yeah.
And then I have a new project on the horizon, actually.
Oh, are you willing to share? Is
it
too early?
No.
Okay.
It's fine. It's probably great timing. So I started like kind of in this journey. I started going shooting with my husband and my son. We would just go out and do target shooting, and we got a trainer, and started doing competition shooting, and I really liked it. But my husband and my son got good fast, and I just needed a little more space and time. And so I went to pack my bag to go with the trainer, and I realized I didn't have a bag. My husband's bag stood about 3 feet tall and held a whole arsenal, and I just needed one that held mine. And there's nothing on the market for women. There's this Barbie pink, Barbie purple, and camo pink duffel style bag that most grown women would not choose to carry ever. And so I got really frustrated about that. And I created a new company. It's a product company. It's called Jane Wick. So kind of a play off of John Wick.
John Wick,
and
yeah.
Yeah. And we are designing women's gun range backpacks.
Wow. Okay. So is this pistol, rifle, shotgun?
So right now it's pistol, and we're going to start there. Of course, you got to start somewhere. We're just in the final prototype stages, and we should have the first production out probably about October-ish. So kind of hit the market right before Christmas. And so yeah.
Oh, wow. That is so cool. I know I didn't share this, but I'm actually a trap shooting coach.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm the head coach for a school here in Little Rock is where I am. And I've been coaching trap for 9 or 10 years or something. So I get the whole gun bag and you got to have a spot for all your stuff. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And it has pockets that have a special spot for your eye protection or air protection or ammo. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the whole thing. It's in brown leather. Each bag, if you've seen the movies John Wick, they have these special coins they use. So each bag will come with a coin that one side will be whatever the line of the bag was themed after, and then the other side will be Jane Wick. So the first line is going to be after a woman sharpshooter in history, Calamity Jane.
Ah,
So
yeah.
yeah, and the second line will actually be named after Annie Oakley. So
That is so cool. Yeah. Okay. Now I know I'm gonna want to get in the weeds on this because this is my jam. And if there's two things that you can smell at my house, it's either bacon in a skillet or gunpowder. That's kind of the life that we live.
right.
Let's talk about this. Let's kind of drill down on this just a little bit. So you saw a need for women
Yes.
and capitalize on it. So I'm sure there's lots of people that are going to listen to this podcast going, okay, how did you, what was the trigger? What was the trigger? What tipped you to say, I've got a great idea and I'm going to do this? How'd you go through that process?
Well, so obviously I started telling people about it, getting feedback and, I think your friends and stuff always tell you stuff's a good idea, but there's a certain, you can like see it in people's eyes. Like when I tell people about Jane Wick, I mean, we're on a video call right here and I could see it in your eyes when I was telling
Oh,
you about it, right? Like, I mean, you can see how it lights them up. And so for me, I could see that. But also, I joined what was called Armed Women of America. So I shoot with about 20 to 25 women twice a month and two different groups. And they were all complain because I thought maybe it was just me because I had just gone into shooting and they were all complaining about the same thing. They all complain about their bags every single time. They complain about not being able to find a bag. So that kind of started making me feel like, and first of all, not a single one of them is using that Barbie pink or camo pink duffel bag. Okay. Like no one. So anyways, I felt like I had this great idea. And then in our town, there was what's called a pitch contest. So you come and you pitch an idea, and at the end of which I didn't really understand what it was, but I wanted to test it out on more people than just me. At the end of the weekend, if you pitch your idea, they pick the top 12, and then you go through this weekend long deal. And then they have 3 categories, and one person from each category wins at the end of the weekend, and you win $5,000 towards your idea. Right. Well, and I didn't know that though when I first went to pitch it. But I called a friend and I was like, should I go pitch this? And she said the funniest thing to me. And so some people might not think about this, but I was all worried about whether I should go or not go. And it's a weekend long thing. And I didn't know what it was. And I didn't know the schedule and all this stuff that gets in your head. And she says, well, why don't you just go? And if you don't like it, leave.
yeah.
Never occurred to me. Never, not one moment did it occur to me that if I went and I didn't like it, I could just leave. Anyway, so that's its own lesson, right?
Yeah.
But so I go. I am one of 2 women out of 45 of us that pitched business ideas that day. I made it to the first round of 12. So they liked it enough that I made it to
Okay.
the first round. And then we had all weekend. So basically 48 hours where you had all these people come in and mentor you and all this stuff. And you have to make this PowerPoint and these slides and this deck and figure out, I mean, you basically go through what you do in 6 months to a year of a startup, and they compact all into a weekend.
Wow.
It's super intense. And anyway, so at the end of the weekend, I pitched the idea. It was basically exactly like I just told you, but it had, all the fancy slides, and it talked about It had some great numbers. So 42% of gun owners in America are women, which that's a pretty big number to not have that niche filled. And 3.5 million women bought a gun in the last 2 years. So in the US, I mean, so when you're talking about these kind of numbers, it's like, how is that not in the market, right? Like there's a billion concealed carry purses. Here, honey, put this in your purse, but there's no bag for you to go learn how to use it, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, needless to say, we got to the end of the weekend. I pitched it. I won the pitch competition. So I won the first $5,000. And I feel like that definitely gave it some validation. Like I was like, okay, because I didn't even know if the name Jane Wick would stick, right? Like through the weekend. And then I just started down the road. Anyone who said they would mentor me or they knew about this stuff, I took all the time they would give me, and I tried to make sure I met with those people regular, and I still do, once a month or once every other month, depending on anyone who would give me time to talk about it. I've talked to lawyers, and I've talked to finance people, and I've talked to textile people, and I went to LA. I heard about this textile event, so because it's a bag, they call it textile. So I learned that too, right? And I booked a flight to LA, and I went to the event. And here's what's interesting. Someone told me right before I went, they said, "Don't you think you're getting a little ahead of yourself?"
Ooh.
And I was like, I mean, there's a lot of people like, but I went and learned. Every single person that would talk to me, everywhere I could go, I didn't know what I was going to learn. But turns out when I went to LA, I got a tour like 10 different factories. I'd never seen the inside of a factory, right? So, that's really, and here we are now, fast forward, we're about 2 weeks away from getting the final prototype. So we got a prototype, we tested it, we sent back all the stuff, and we're getting a final one. But I definitely still have a lot to learn on it, but yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So in all of that, there's one word that stuck with me. You mentioned mentor. Talk about your throughout your career, what mentors have meant to you, and how going forward, you would use mentors.
Yeah, no, I love that because, the first thing is, I think it's important to have more than one, several, because you have to remember your mentor is giving you advice only on their experience or background. And something that you find sometimes, or a lot of times as an entrepreneur, is that you are out dreaming the people around you, right? Like that's what takes you into entrepreneurship.
I love that. Oh, I don't mean to interrupt, but man, I love that.
Right? So you might have someone that you think would be a great mentor, but once you outdream them, sometimes you need to have other people so you can bounce different stuff off of other people, and you're never just following like one person's advice. Instead, you're taking all their different advice and then you're putting it to use with who you are and what your dreams are, right? Versus kind of putting your dreams through another person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I will take almost as many mentors as I can get. If somebody feels like they can teach me about something, I will keep it. But also, the first mentor I ever had to, not like get rid of or let go of, but just kind of let that relationship lie, was heartbreaking for me. Like I loved them so much. I just wanted to follow them to the end of the earth. But there was a point where those limitations started, right? And then as I grew and learned, even at Walmart, it's okay. It's okay to have a mentor that is very important in your life right now. And that at some point you kind of let it lie, and they probably move on and mentor other people. And that's okay too, right? I think that's the hardest thing about it, but I feel like 4 is a really good number. But you should never limit yourself to one and just And I think it's okay to ask people if they'll mentor you. Like, I mean, I do it all the time. I talked to a woman who's done probably 100 keynote speeches, and I've done a couple. And I said, I would love to have you as a mentor. I mean, she took the time. She sat down next to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, teach me, right? So that's always important.
Yeah. I've had mentors in the past, and some, it was a known relationship mentor. And there's some that were mentors of mine. They probably never knew it. There's people that you lean on. And I think mentorship is critically important for anyone to grow, whether you're corporate or an entrepreneur, but especially with an entrepreneur. Yeah. So that's great. I appreciate you sharing that story.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about going forward. They always say the cliche is what got you here won't get you there. From your journey and where you're launching this new business, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So, because this is a podcast that's really meant to help people and just being really transparent. So I kind of talked to you about my other businesses. Well, I'd tell you what's different about where I'm headed is I wasn't running product companies necessarily, so I didn't need investors. So if I now am on a journey of what does that look like to have investors? I have people who are interested in being investors, and I need them to be investors, right? In Jane Wick, but it's a whole different world, right? So I am on a journey right now to go and learn and find more mentors and find mentors in that area. And what does it look like to have a company that has investors? Because that's different than just having a regular small business or something like that, or a franchise. So that's going to be a big piece as I'm moving in this future. It's a big piece right now, and it will continue to be into this next year. The other big thing, of course, is that I'm working on my second book. So yeah, I have a plan, which I say that because the name of the book is Plan. So the first book was called Move. And I'm really into like short, actionable things, right? So I have a plan for 5 of them in all, and it is starts with move, plan, save, grow, lead. So those will be like the 5 books.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, the next one is plan, and it's about just like how to take those dreams and turn them into actual like goals, and what does that look like, and how do you make them goals, and how do you meet your goals, and all that.
Yeah. It's fantastic. I guess I always hesitate to ask this, and that's why I'm pausing and hesitating, because some people love the question and some are like, ooh. If you could write a letter to your younger self based on all this stuff this path that you've gone, this journey, if you're writing it back and you knew that you were going to go down this path, what would you tell your younger self to better prepare yourself for starting that first business?
So the short answer is I wouldn't. I mean, there was so many chances I took. I feel like, especially even with moving with Walmart, I moved from where my hometown halfway across the country. I moved all these things. I moved to the corporate office, which I never thought I'd do. But all of them were like, I joke about, they're like the Indiana Jones movie where he's running out of the hole and there's a bridge there, but you just can't see it, but you just have to step on it. And then you realize it's there, right? Like, there are so many moments like that. But if I hadn't have gone through those feelings and those emotions and if I hadn't had to make those decisions in the complete unknown, I don't know that I would have been as prepared for my entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and, I mean, I'm a real positive person. Like, I'm always about like the glass. I'm so thankful for so many things in my life. And even if things don't go as I wanted or as planned, or, the bad things that happen, I'm still trying to be thankful for the good things that came out of them. And, so I don't think I would tell my younger self anything. I think I would just leave it alone.
Yeah. The one thing I see with entrepreneurs is that redefining that comfort zone. That I like watching that journey that people go down, that they just because they've never done it doesn't mean they can't. It's just they've never done it, and that's great. I appreciate, I guess that's the long way to answer. I appreciate that answer because I get that. I totally get that. Yeah. Well, thank you. This has been fantastic. I think I could talk all afternoon. But I appreciate you coming on the show, and I would like to publicly invite you somewhere down the road after you get to Jane Wick moving. I would love to have you back on the show.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. And thank you so much for having me. And,
Yeah.
I'd love to connect even off the show and stay connected with you and what you're doing. And
Yeah.
yeah,
All right.
it's a great podcast. So I appreciate it.
No, thank you for being a guest today.